Greetings, brothers and sisters. Just want to talk about one subject today. That is the belief in God. There was an article, somebody sent me a meme or something, that was in reference to a Gallup poll. Belief in God in the U.S. dips to 81%, a new low. And it says here, the vast majority of U.S. adults believe in God, but the 81% who do so is down 6 percentage points from 2017 and is the lowest in Gallup's trend. Between 1944 and 2011, more than 90% of Americans believed in God. And so that's quite a leap. I'm surprised at the 81%. I would have thought it was less. And then my wife and I were both saying that when we talked about it. But then when I thought about it, that means 20% or 19% of people are atheists or agnostics or something, right? I was thinking about this in terms of behavior and what we consider a good person, right? Like, how many people who believe in God are actually good people? Like, how does that belief in God translate into their daily affairs and, whether you're a liar or not, or, how honest you are, or, everybody's a liar to one degree or another. Some of the people who really are into their religion, or there are people who are into heartfulness, which is, a spiritual movement, like should be even, there should even be more a correlation between doing heartfulness and being a good person, because you're interacting with God on a, daily basis through meditation. And so, there's a difference between praying to God and actually communing with God, which is what you do in meditation. And the heartfulness system facilitates a connection between God and you and your soul and your heart feels things, right? I've experienced this myself, feeling things that I didn't feel before in my heart that made it, that I would soften my behavior and, feeling, when I've hurt somebody else's feelings and feeling in my heart and these things, right? And so there should be a correlation between heartfulness and good behavior, but there's many people in heartfulness who've gotten worse and their egos have gotten bigger. Of course, it happens in religions quite frequently. The people who are the most religious and they're really into the religion's rules are just nightmares, OCD people that you got to deal with, right? And so there's always those people that use the Bible, like, in Christianity, as a weapon to, demean other people and tell them their behavior's wrong and lord over them, and use a religious authority to do things and, take liberties and, do things in the name of God or whatever it is, right? And so it isn't like, there's ever been a situation where there's been a correlation between people's belief in God and being a good person, right? I'm particularly thinking about this because of the recent heartfulness controversy things I'm covering and just how it's kind of made me feel. And, it's just, I'm not really interested in making videos about the normal celebrity stuff, things that I don't really care about. And, I'm kind of feeling like, what's the point, right? Things are going in a negative direction, but they weren't great before. It wasn't like they were great back when 90% of people in America believed in God, or worldwide, right? Because the belief in God means nothing, right? Like, it's something, but it's really nothing, because if you believe in something, doesn't mean that thing has an influence on you. You believe in other people. You believe that your mom and your dad are real, right? They're not like a myth, but do you listen to them, right? You believe in your friends and your enemies, and, but how much do you allow those people to influence your decision-making process or change you? Do you listen to people? And, when you're on the wrong course of action, are you willing to be corrected? Are you willing to change your course of action? You're willing to be open to, whatever might be the truth when you're, living a lie, right? We see this all the time in the truth community and within the truth community itself, right? That people are, in and out of the truth community, that people can be believing in something that's completely fake or a lie And, what I've been dealing with the heartfulness, people go along with things that they know to be wrong because an authority figure or whatever it is, the social dynamics of the thing, peer pressure, they won't speak up against something they know to be wrong. And so, how much are you influenced by your belief of God in God? You'd have to listen to God. Like, how many people listen to God? How many people have a relationship with God? How many, in a real way, not your ego masquerading as God, your ego pretending to be God, right? Oh, God just talked to me. Sounded a lot like my ego. It told me exactly what my ego was, exactly what I wanted to hear, right? And so if you're listening to God and you have a relationship with God, you get bad news, you get, whatever it is. You get information, and not just information, but truths that you don't want to hear, truths that you're not really willing to accept. And then are you willing to change when you get those truths? Because sometimes people realize they've been wrong all along and they still go along with their original agenda. They don't change. God shows them something, they know the truth, but they back the lie. They do something wrong even though they know it's wrong, and they go through with it, right? I mean, that's one of the savage things about the human race, right? 100% of people could believe in God. Like, it doesn't matter how many people believe in God, right? All that matters is whether you listen to God and you're willing to change your course of action, you're willing to do things you don't want to do, you're willing to, whatever it is, right? Do the hard things that your soul has planned for you and accept things that are sucky and, things that you are unpleasant as being something that's for your best self-interest, and be grateful and move forward with a positive attitude, right? You think about today's Father's Day. I don't know when you might be listening to this, and please, you don't have to wish me a happy Father's Day. I usually don't even talk about holidays when I'm doing a video, but I was thinking about this morning. For me, I don't even think about it, right? I don't even think about like being my day. My wife said happy Father's Day this morning. I, forgot that it was even supposed to be Father's Day. My son said happy Father's Day, and, I'm going to be 1 for 4, you know. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. But I don't even like think about it as my personal holiday. But if you think of as God is the Father, God is the Creator, you were created by God. And there is sort of a willful, like a thumbing of the nose at God from, the average human person. That, once you now have your own ability to be out on your own and make your own decisions and, to have freedom of choice, you don't go along with what God wants you to do. That's the problem. Because people can believe in God, but do they seek out God's approval? Do they seek out what God wants them to do? Do they ask God's permission before taking some course of action? Do they, pray to God to make sure that they're, doing the right thing, that they're doing what God intends them to do, right? So people can believe in God, but do they want to obey God? Do they want, God to influence their decision making? And for the most part, people want to do whatever they want to do when they want to do it. See, there's a correlation to people listening to their parents and, disrespecting their parents and not believing in their parents, not having respect for their parents, not having respect for authority figures, and those authority figures losing respect because they're not worth respecting, right? They act in a way that doesn't warrant your respect. A lot of immature parents, you think about the way parents are today, and they have trouble making adult decisions. Sometimes, oftentimes now you have parents who look to their kids to tell them what to do and how to raise them, right? Because they, can't be adults. They can't be authority figures. They don't know how to discipline. This has been a long-standing American problem that just keeps on getting worse. More and more immature adults, and they didn't have good parents as role models to, as a reference point, right? And so, when people think of their father, how many people think they're good fathers? And then look at the way men are being, treated, and just the way they're being portrayed, right? My wife and I are watching that show Barry, and it's got some interesting. I thought it was a kind of a stupid, goofy comedy. I'd seen it advertised. HBO just makes quality shows, but they deal a lot. They deal a lot with the hypocrisy of feminism in sort of a back channel, back way. But you think about the way, this idea of toxic masculinity and all the ways that they're saying that being a man and, traditional men, and again, I can understand that some of it's right. There is some, of course, violent and aggressive and bullying tendencies and things that exist throughout nature, and, has to be purified and softened and, gaining a loving heart and being more compassionate. These are all things that men have to work on. You're born and, with certain levels of aggression and certain levels of ego that you have to, as a spiritual person, balance out and be more gentle, be more thoughtful, be more, less emotional, less angry and things. And so, yeah, there's truth in that. But then there's just sort of a war against masculinity and fatherhood and men, right? How many people have respect or think well of their dads or their fathers? And so that translates into the way people relate to God, right? The way people think about God. How many people actually go to their parents and ask for advice? Especially the generation of kids growing up today who, they think everybody older than them's a boomer, and they, lack respect for them, and they, feel like they don't get it. There's such a wide gap between the belief system of the young people today and, the older generations. In the previous generations before my generation, Generation X, the boomers, which was the previous generation, and then the generations before, the greatest generation, all these generations, they had respect for their parents, and their parents were, I guess, more respectable. And then the boomer hippie generation came along, and they didn't respect their elders, they didn't respect their parents, and their parents maybe, weren't able to change and adapt to whatever was going on in the world, evolve, reach up and embrace some sort of a higher level of consciousness. And then the boomers became parents themselves, and they were, not respectable either, right? They weren't good parents. They were good at being angry teenagers, but that didn't translate to being better parents. They rebelled against everything their parents did. But their parents had tradition and skills and things like this that they didn't possess. You don't get better at something by hating it, right? By, hating your parents and everything they stand for doesn't make you into a good parent. And then technology developed into something that was divisive. People became more selfish. Parents became more selfish and less secure about their parental abilities. They didn't have good training. Divorces were the norm. There were very few good marriages, broken families, no families at all. And then the internet took over. And then there was almost no contact between the kids and the parents. Kids are being raised by their peers, the internet, and the school system, and the family is decimated, right? And so there's two ways of looking at God. There's, God is singular, but there's God is the Father and God is the Mother, the Divine Mother and the Divine Father. And when you hate both your parents, it's hard to, relate to God in either way, right? It's hard to understand God as a father or God as a mother because you don't even have a reference point in your internal system for a mother or father, right? Now we have these parents who are completely untrained, insecure in their abilities. They're chasing the latest trend and expecting the kids to raise themselves, right? And we see it. And so how can anybody understand God? The mother isn't in the house. The mother isn't having time with the kids and teaching them how to love. The mother doesn't know how to love herself, right? Her innate ability to love has been somehow overwritten, and she doesn't have the capacity to love. She's gotten hard and, feminist and, aggressive and manlike, right? Competitive and selfish. And so there's no reference point, right? You're supposed to understand God through the family. And if you don't have a family and you don't know how to love, then, your understanding of God is going to be something of the feeling you get when you finish a video game or something like that, right? Some sort of selfish, materialistic feeling. That's all you can understand God, because you haven't experienced love. You haven't experienced higher developed qualities. Your heart is completely encompassed with impressions and hedonistic living and There's no, there's no feeling in your heart, no feeling of love, no feeling of compassion. Your energy has been stolen by all the other vampires in your life. Everybody thieving other people's energy, sucking each other's energy, running each other down, right? Competitive, hostile, stupid, right? Idiocracy. I mean, just a complete crap fest out there. And so, yeah, people can say they believe in God, but what does that mean, right? I mean, it means something different to somebody who has the ability for abstract thought than somebody who doesn't. Someone with double digit IQ, what does God mean to them? Somebody who has a stone heart and doesn't have the capacity to feel love or empathy or compassion or these higher developed qualities. I mean, all these things, right? And so, yeah, all right, you believe in God. Yeah, was it, what does that mean to you, right? Does it mean you have a relationship with God? Does it mean that you're getting closer to God? Does it mean that you're doing God's work? Does it mean you're a service-oriented person? Does it mean that you're working to be a better person, right? And so, even with the idea of the number of people who actually believe in God is gone down, but it's really their level of comprehension and feeling and knowing of what God is, right? To really understand what you're seeing in the external world, you have to have it inside yourself, right? So if you see, I don't know, a mountain lion, if you read about mountain lions, you have some knowledge, you saw one at a zoo before, and you understand something about it. Maybe you're a hunter or something. You've had some experience with animal life and nature and things, or you're a naturalist or whatever it is, and you come across a mountain lion. It's a lot different than somebody who's lived in a apartment their whole life in the city and never been out in the wilderness. All of a sudden they see a mountain lion and they don't know what to do, right? Like I saw kids when we were at the ashram in India. There were kids, foreign kids, who were going to the school there, the heartfulness school, and I saw these kids running away from insects, like they just, they were scared of like nature and things like this, right? And so if you don't have something as a reference point inside your internal system, you don't know how to relate to it. And so for you to have an understanding or any kind of feeling or conception of God, there has to be divinity within you. God has to exist within you so that you can recognize God or understand God outside yourself and in the etheric universe. And so that's what doing some sort of spiritual practice, the heartfulness meditation, at least the transmission and cleaning, not the organization, but the actual services and the system itself, helps people develop an internal relationship with God. And so that you can understand God, that you can maybe not know God on a mental level, but you can feel God and get an understanding of the divine ways. And that's a lot different than saying, yeah, I believe in God. It means you believe in the concept of God. It's the same thing as saying I believe in UFOs, right? Yeah, have you seen one? Well, not really. I believe in Santa Claus. It's the same thing. And so you have to have something internal to yourself, right? Something inside yourself that is of a divine nature. You have to find the divinity within yourself to really, connect to God on a deeper level. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.